Today's video I'm going to get the engine measured up. This is also, I found this at my dad's and my parts hoard, and it is a used flywheel, but the teeth appear to be good. And I think this one will work. There's a few little nicks, and I'll just take a little file and clean them up, but I don't see any reason why this flywheel would not crank the engine properly. Exactly the same tooth pattern, teeth amount, lines up, all the holes match. See no reason why this flywheel, they look identical, wouldn't work. So we got a good flywheel here. Well, trying to video this, measuring this, has just been really difficult. The camera gets in my way when I try and get up close, but I got this bore gauge, and when it's zeroed right there, I don't know if any of this is going to show up in the video, but right there it's zeroed, and it's pretty good right there on the ring ridge at 4 inches. And then I go down into the bore, and I've measured in numerous places in the bore, and it's got maybe 0.00, that would be like 0.0005 to 0.001 thousandths inch wear, pretty consistent across all the bores. The factory specifications is 0.00224. So I believe the cylinders can be honed and go back to standard. And got, oh, my tripod's falling apart here. I got this gauge, you know, so you can check run out, and this goes in the bore, and then you can run it up and around in your bore and check, you know. And I'm just doing this quickly. You need to do it kind of slow and carefully, and everything's within specifications on the bores. There's no major taper, there's no major wear. I'll see if this will show up. Basically that's beyond where the piston travels, and I tried to zero this. This is hard to zero down in the bore, but it's close to where I can see where it's at, so I know what I'm measuring here. And there is just a little bit of maybe a 0.5 thousandths of taper. And this isn't really the wear side, this is more the wear side. So this is where you really want to check for taper, but I did go around and do all the cylinders, and they're in good shape. They're not going to need reboring. So just wanted to show you kind of what I was doing here. Alright, I just looked in the shop manual at factory specs, and the taper is 1 thousandths to the taper limit is 0.001 and the maximum is 10 thousandths, 0.010. So everything's within really good specs on this, on these cylinders. They're in surprisingly good shape. So I'm going to flip the motor back over and get the specs on the crank, and if it's good I might finish disassembling the block and hone the cylinders and clean the block up while we have nice weather. I can take it out and pressure wash it. And then I got another gauge here I was just putzing with. I've been measuring here for quite a while. So I have this, so when this is setting the micrometer, that's zeroed at exactly 4 inches. And then I kind of can move it around in the bores. And again, I'm getting about the same thing I was with that micrometer. It's a half a thousandths to a thousandths of wear. And so I'm going to measure up the pistons, and the crank will do that next. So I've spent about half the day doing the measuring and fiddling around, and I remeasured the bores on the block several times, you know, just to make sure I was exactly right on all the bores. And it's odd because these bores are all really good, right on the money, within a half, 1/1000th to a half a thousandths of factory specs. You know, they're in that window of totally being good. And these bores are too, but these bores are exactly what the block says. 3/1000ths over, 4/1000ths over, 3/1000ths over, 4/1000ths over. Every one of these bores is slightly over, but they're not worn, there's no taper. And then I'm measuring the pistons, and I'm finding the pistons that go in the individual holes are 3/1000ths over. So every piston on this side of the engine is 3/1000ths oversized piston. This is a standard piston right here. And you can, I don't think that's going to show up, so I don't even know. I took the camera off the tripod, it was just easier, but that piston is 3.999, you know, it's almost 4 inches, and the other ones are just slightly over 4 inches by literally 3/1000ths. And everything meets the factory specifications for the piston size. You can see the 3/1000ths oversized pistons, and for the 352 the specifications, and those pistons are right on this side of the, they're like 0.0005, so everything's nice and tight in this motor. So I think with a quick hone I won't go out of limits. I do have a hone somewhere in here. My brother gave me a hone to use. There's new stones for the hone, a ridge reamer, which I won't need, all the valve guide measuring tools, valve tools. I'm going to send the heads out, so I'm not even going to fool with measuring that stuff. If it needs new valve guides, I'll have them put new valve guides in it. But all the cylinders and all the pistons are factory specs, so I'm going to run a hone through the cylinder, put standard rings, put those pistons back in the engine, and now I'm going to measure up the crank and see what we have there. This has been, like I say, I've been probably close to 3 hours now measuring the bores on the cylinders. And if they have a spec for the lifter guides, I might even measure them. So I got all kinds of nice measuring tools here. Alright, measuring the crankshaft, and maybe I'm doing something wrong, but it says for the 352 the spec is 2.438 to 2.4388, and I'm coming up with 2.439, which means the crankshaft is thicker than specs by 200,000ths. I don't know if that shows up there or not, but that's what I'm reading on the micrometer. Now, that's kind of, that first tick is 25 thousandths, and I'm up 14. So doesn't that make 439? It kind of does to me, unless I'm not thinking straight. I measured all, I haven't pulled the crank out, but I've been turning the crank, and I've been measuring the journals. You know, in all different directions this micrometer fits in pretty well, and I've measured from journal to journal about every width of those things on the micrometer, and even where the connecting rods don't run, it measures the same. It's 100% the same from machined edge to machine edged across the full length, going around the journal in a lot of different positions on all the journals, all 4 journals, all 8 connecting rod surfaces, pretty much all measure exactly the same. So maybe I just, you know, not seen that 200 thousandths on this. I mean, it's pretty much well ticked to a line. And, you know, I tighten it with this so it stops like it should. And I can move that around and on and off the crank on all the journals nicely. So I'm going to say that the connecting rod journals are actually better than what they should be. I mean, if that's, I mean, you're talking the larger they are, the tighter they're going to be, right? I mean, if these are 200 thousandths tighter than normal, that's not going to make a big difference as long as it has a proper oil clearance. I'll plastic gauge it when I put it together. But you can see these original rod bearings, you know, they're pretty darn worn looking. So I don't know, maybe it was because they're tight, maybe they reamed them. But you know, this Babbitt material will wear way before that crankshaft wears. So there's no scoring. I mean, they're absolutely the same all the way around. All 8 rods, the bearings all look like that, 100% of them. So maybe that's just the way they were. Maybe they honed them or did something to make up that 200 thousandths. I don't know. But I'll get new standard bearings and plastic gauge them. So I'm going to pop the crank and the cam out. I'm going to check all the journals on the crank, but these are the main bearing caps, and I stamped them so they're all going to be in order facing the right way. The bearings don't look like they really, I mean, look at the thrust bearing, doesn't even have any wear on it. This cap was a pain to get off because of the seal here. That's the rear main oil seal right there. There's a little slinger on the crank right here that kind of slings it away from the sealing surface. This is a sealing surface. Sorry, I wasn't pointing the camera right at it. That needs a good cleaning there. It's all kind of tarry and gooey and nasty. But it doesn't look like the rear main was leaking on this engine. And we'll get the crank and measure the mains now. Camshaft actually looks pretty darn good. We'll pop it out here in a few minutes. I'm going to measure up the crank. I just set it on end in the flywheel. I don't like laying them down. So let's get the mains measured and see what we got there. Alright, I just got done measuring all 4 of the mains in several different positions, the full length of the journal for taper, and the specifications for the 352 is 2.7484 to 2.7492. This is 2.7495. So it's within that. It actually would be a little larger than that. So my, you know, I could be just not turning that enough or something, but 300 thousandths larger than specifications here, and it was 200 thousandths larger than specifications for the connecting rod bore. So I'll just get standard bearings for it and plastic gauge them. I think that, you know, I don't think the tolerances were that tight when they machined these at the factory. You know, they you know, 100,000, you know, a few hundred thousandths isn't gonna make the engine not turn, I hope, but we'll do plastic gauge on it. Well, there's the inside. The rod bearings have a little staining on them, but but they don't look worn at all. Or I'm sorry, the camshaft bearings. I'm going to put new cam bearings and cam and lifters. You can see the machining quite well where the pistons no longer, you know, they didn't really travel down here. And there's all kinds of machining there, so you can see, you know, I could probably throw this motor back together with all these parts, you know, with all the rings freed up and you know, everything cleaned up. I literally could probably throw it back together and it would run absolutely fine, but you know, that would be kind of silly. You know, it's a part, so I'll put new bearings and rings, and the camshaft really looks good. It doesn't look it's got a little surface, just very faint surface rust on the back side of some of the lobes where the lifter really didn't run. The lifter, you can kind of see where it's shinier is where the lifters run, so they spin. But that camshaft is pretty nice. I don't think it has any wear on it. I got the gauges from my brother to where I could check the lift and the wear and everything, but I'm not even going to bother. I just spent let's see, 4 hours and 40 minutes measuring bores and crank and pistons, and you know, so I think that everything's on the, you know, right within specifications. I put the gear on so I could pull it out of the engine. It'd take that plate off that was there, that was held on by those two Phillips screws, and the thrust washer was on the camshaft. So might run a hone through the cylinders next, and then while the weather's still, you know, decent, I might knock the freeze plugs out and clean the thing up and get it ready to reassemble. I would like to hone the cylinders before I wash it, so I can get all the stuff from honing out of the cylinders with hot dish soap and water. Check this out, Santa came again today, and he even brought me a book from his workshop so I can order more parts from the North Pole. So yeah, we're gonna do a dual reservoir, probably that master there. We'll do it up, but yeah, got a nice catalog from Santa. Started knocking the freeze plugs out. Now you can see how badly rotted out that plug is. Alright, I just put the calibration tool in the micrometer and it's off about a 1/2 thousandths of an inch. So I think I'll correct that and then do some remeasuring. So remeasuring, this is what I came up with the crank, so it's within specs. It's at the tighter end of specifications, which is good. And this is what I came up with on the rod journals, which is on the tighter end of specifications, which is good. So everything's standard. There was no run out or taper when I measured the crank. Kind of show you where I kind of measured around in like 4 or 5 ways here, and then I measured from here up, 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 you know, kind of all along here at different angles to make sure that that wasn't out of round or anything. And I did the same with the mains. Everything's really a nice shape on this, so the crank is fine. All I need to do is get new bearings. The pistons, I went around and remeasured. They're all spot on. The micrometer, the measuring stuff I was using on that was calibrated properly, and I rechecked all the cylinders. So here it is. Let's see, quite a ways. They started at 9:30. Yeah. So most of the day I've spent measuring and remeasuring and double checking and just making sure everything's right and that it doesn't need to go to the machine shop. And I think we're going to go back with standard. So I'm going to finish knocking the plugs out, the freeze plugs, and I think Wednesday I'm going to hone the cylinders. My brother's coming down. We're going to give the cylinders a quick hone, and then I'm going to clean up the engine and get it ready for when I get the parts to reassemble. I'm going to, as I said, put new cam bearings and cam and stuff in. So tomorrow I'm going to take the steering gear off and see about getting the seals for it, and I can, through that magazine where I got the battery tray, I can get the power steering lines, I can get the proportioning valve, the dual reservoir, I can get every component for the braking system. So what I need to do is just make a list of everything I need new for the car and just order it all at once. You know, maybe that's bulk stuff. I think I'll see if I can get that ground strap, seeing the insulation's tore off, maybe new battery cables, odds and ends like that. But I got the steering gear, and I got to clean this up and reseal this. So I'll work on those couple things between now and when my brother comes over and we shoot a hone through here. I want him to go through the block and really look at it. My brother was a heavy engine guy and automatic, well, transmission guy for Chrysler for a lot of years. He knows his stuff inside out, and I just want his opinion. And one of his buddies that used to be his boss that he's really good friends with, his favorite engine to build is the Ford 352. So he's really up on these motors, so I even talk him to see if he can bring him along and give it a looking at. But anyway, that's it for today. I believe I've spent the whole day measuring, and I'm going to knock out the freeze plugs and call it a day. Alright, I knocked the freeze plugs out. This was obviously the really rotted out one. I don't know if the hole, yeah, it shows up. That one's got a hole in it. I think this one was okay. That one was okay. This is the other side of the engine. This one, my punch went through it, but you can kind of see where it's rotted out. This was this freeze plug. And that one has a pinhole in it, and that one was this freeze plug. And the really bad one that I showed you was that freeze plug. And look at the crud in the cooling jackets. So I'm going to clean all that out, and you know, why not wash it all out so that the coolant can circulate around the cylinders good. Yeah, look at that nastiness in the cooling jacket. It's like a paste almost. So I'm going to go through and clean all the water jackets out too. A lot of crud in there. Does that show up in there? There's like a tube in there, but it's almost like it's solid. It's not like a tube because it doesn't come anywhere in the casting I can see there. I mean, that would be like right in here somewhere, and it doesn't come up into the parting surface, which would be like right in here somewhere, like right in line, a little forward, maybe right in here. If anyone knows what the heck that is, wants to let me know. There isn't one on the other side. I got a massive amount of crud scraped out of there, and I'm going to wash that out really good and make sure there's no crud in the jackets. You know, you see these overheated cars, it's from poorly maintained cooling system. The radiator is not the only part of the cooling system. The cooling jackets are a major part of it too, so I'm going to clean all that out really good. These cars generally, if their cooling system's done right, they do not overheat. So I just set the crank back in there just to so it doesn't tip over or get damaged. Might throw a towel over the engine to keep the crud out of it. Now I'm going to polish these journals. My brother said take some small like hose, like 1/4 inch OD with some 1200 or so grit sandpaper and just kind of work it, you know, wrap the paper around the journal and wrap the hose around a bunch of times. Then you just kind of pull it back and forth on each end to kind of just polish them up. And I think we'll do that and give the, like I say, the everything in the cylinders a hone and a good thorough cleaning. Those cooling jackets really need it, and get in there and really blast them clean. Well, crud that I just got out of the one spot of the one jacket. So yeah, I turned the motor on its side so these were facing down and got up in there and scraped all the crud out of both sides the best I could so it doesn't harden in there. And I can feel the casting up in all the engine now all the way around. So now I just need to rinse it out because some of that stuff, you know, that I broke loose fell down in, so it needs to be washed out. Okay, so I'm going to call it a day. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to see this car resurrected back into a fun summer cruiser, subscribe to my channel. And thank you for watching my videos. Big old house, huge, just goes on forever, basements after basements. It's a big estate. We're at the corner of Franklin and Quarton Road. I guess this is Bloomfield Hills?
Bloomfield Hills or West Bloomfield?
West Bloomfield or Bloomfield Hills. So somebody wants a Ford F5. Has no box, but it has all the wheels, tires. It's a complete truck. Right down to the flathead, 66,000 miles. You could probably drag it out, cutting a little brush out here. And open that door up and drag it out. It looks like it's starting to collapse the barn, so it'd be nice if somebody would save it.